Even though Pink Panther is silent, his shows tell a much greater story. He's one of the most iconic characters of all time, and with that comes quite the hefty load of media in his franchise. From painting buildings pink, to stopping Soviet spies, to a single dad with 2 kids, to promoting asbestos, to finding the fountain of youth. 11 movies, hundreds of episodes across 4 shows, tons of sister shows like The Ant and the Aardvark, over 100 comic books, 5 video games. This pink feline has it all, and I am somehow going to make it all make sense. There are 11 movies in the Pink Panther franchise, and all 11 are clickbait before clickbait. They have nothing to do with the Pink Panther, the character, besides the opening credits, but he has no relevance. In the first movie, the Pink Panther is a diamond, and in most of the 11 movies, the main character is Inspector Clouseau. In the animated shows, Inspector Clouseau is nowhere to be seen, therefore making all 11 of these movies irrelevant. The Pink Panther, the character, is lanky, 75% of the time silent, and has the biggest devil-may-care attitude. His entire life is spent absconding an Eggman with a big nose named Big Nose. Or Little Man, depends on which show you're watching. It doesn't really matter, they don't talk anyway. These 2 guys have a bigger game of cat and mouse than Tom and Jerry. Pink Panther is more of an accidental nuisance for Big Nose, but after he retaliates, Pink Panther retaliates, and leads to a constant back and forth. The 2 of them are like the multi-talented Johnny Sins. Every episode has them in a new position or occupation. It's like you took the book of the complete list of American jobs and just flipped to a random page every episode. Most of their encounters end with the Pink Panther winning, but sometimes Big Nose is able to squeeze out a victory here and there, even though sometimes said victories are Pyrrhic. They've been fighting since the beginning of time, and I think that's a good place to start this story. It's very confusing. You'd assume the starting point is the first Pink Panther show because it came first, but the most recent Pink Panther show has the Panther as a teenager, so that one should come first, but there's so much history involved in the original with the prehistoric Panthers and the other time periods where Panther is already an adult, which then doesn't make sense for his teen self to be modern day. Alright, I'm gonna stop right there. The entirety of Pink Panther is a puzzle. Let me just step back and give you some backstory. There are 4 main Pink Panther shows. The Pink Panther show, running from 1964 to 1980. Technically, that's multiple shows with different names, like the all-new Pink Panther show, but we're just gonna amalgamate them. Then there's Pink Panther and Sons, where he had kids, the Pink Panther, the 1993 show, and most recently Pink Panther and Pals in 2010, where Pink Panther is a teen. All of the shows, but predominantly the original and the 1993 one, have tons of episodes showing Pink Panther in a plethora of different time periods. Most commonly in Jurassic times, but also in ancient Egypt, medieval, ancient Rome, the Renaissance, the American Revolution, the Wild West, and the Star Trek future. With Pink Panther, Big Nose, and another character, Manly Man, being in all these past periods and in modern day, you have to question, are they immortal? Is there just one Pink Panther and one Big Nose? Spoiler for later, they're not immortal, but I guess they could be. There's nothing that disproves that. Is it that these past iterations are their ancestors? That's where my mind immediately went. I can't say for sure that they are or aren't. Nothing disproves that either. Or finally, the most television show option, time travel. Is it that modern day Pink Panther is time traveling back to the time of cavemen? So which is it? Immortal, ancestors, or time travel? Yes. One day, caveman Pink Panther is trying to find a bone, and Dr. Helmut von Schmarty time travels back to his time period. Schmarty is an acquaintance of the modern day Pink Panther, however, Schmarty doesn't really take note of their similar appearances. Caveman Pink Panther accidentally travels to modern day and explores. On his way back, he accidentally ends up in a Star Trek future, which was also the focus of another episode. In the modern show, when he's a teen, he stumbles upon a time machine and also travels back to the time periods he's been to before. So once again, all of those other time periods, he either lived through them, died and had kids, or traveled to them. Each are plausible. Some evidence for the ancestor one is the latest show, Pink Panther and Pals, which takes place in modern day in the early 2010s. Pink Panther is a teen, despite being an adult in the 60s through the 90s, so perhaps this teen is a descendant of that adult Pink Panther. There's contrary evidence to that because we know what Pink Panther's kids look like. And it ain't that. So perhaps this teen version is this version's grandkid, thus making his father either Pinky or Panky, which are this Pink Panther's kids. Here's another thing. Dr. Schmarty accidentally shrinks Pink Panther back down to a kid in one episode, which could explain why he's a teen in present day. He does grow back to normal. Who's to say there isn't a more permanent option? But now I have a new piece of evidence. Pink Panther has access to the Fountain of Youth. He found it when he was already a teen, but let's not get nitpicky with the details. Entering the ring is the next next problem with this whole origin thing. It sort of works with the ancestor solution, but is really a new possibility. There are more than one Pink Panther in Big Nose. In one episode, a hunter is trying to skin Pink Panther, and he keeps asking where are the Pink Panthers, plural. There's also an episode where Teen Pink Panther is cloned multiple times, and who's to say it wasn't the first time? In fact, there's all colors of panthers. Pink Panther's kids are friends with a yellow, brown, blue, purple, green, and red panther, which means they all have parents of the same colors. However, they don't look quite the same as Pink Panther. In that show, there is a purple panther that does look like Pink Panther. To add on more confusion, Pink Panther finds his caveman, Blue Panther relative, frozen in ice. So, ancestors, time travel, cloning, who knows? It's probably not immortal though. And with all this, I'm sort of losing my mind. I referred to this as a puzzle. This puzzle is like a 1,000 piece puzzle, but your little toddler sibling is helping you, and they've eaten about 40 of the pieces while you weren't looking. Some of them you were looking, but you didn't care too much. Anyway, same goes for Big Nose. Two versions of him are seen in the same episode. Both are French hunters with names, so this may or may not be Big Nose. But a better piece of evidence is the time a mustache Big Nose and a bearded Big Nose fought over which facial hair was better. At the end, Pink Panther shaved them, and they were basically the same dude. They settled their differences, but then their kids started fighting over their hair. So it sounds like Pink Panther has their own version of Hatfield and McCoy. If there's clones and variants, perhaps the mailman version of Pink Panther and the hunter version of Big Nose and all those occupations and jobs they take up are actually different Pink Panthers and different Big Noses. Not just one of each doing a million different things. If that's the case, there are genie versions of Pink Panther and fairy godmother versions of him. Both genie and fairy godmothers are oddly a recurring theme throughout all of the shows. At this point, I don't know if there's one or a million Pink Panthers, and I don't know what time period he's from, and I don't care. I'm confused, you're probably confused. Let me finally go to the Pink Panther show and its wacky characters. That's assuming this show comes first, and I'm saying it does, because there has to be a starting point. We know Pink Panther and Big Nose, but Big Nose has a dog that usually gets the runt end of everything, trying to help out his owner, but because of the way things typically play out, the dog is blamed for the events, so he turns on Big Nose. In one episode, the dog shoots him. That's a Florida Man headline if I've ever seen one. Dog shoots owner while he's asleep, thinking it was a panther. Then there's Horse, and he's not really worth listing because he doesn't do all that much. Because he's, like, not important. And then finally there's the Inspector. He was rarely in this show, but had his own secondary show called The Inspector. Logically, this is the cartoon version of Inspector Clouseau from the movies, however, he is never explicitly called Inspector Clouseau. He is in the opening sequence to one of the movies, but I'm calling it a coincidence, so I don't have to watch the movies, because that would make it a backstory. It doesn't really matter either way, even if the movies are his backstory, it does not play into the show. He plays the same role as Big Nose, just more detective-y. He also has a partner, Sergeant Doo-Doo. Just like the Inspector, there are other cartoons that are Pink Panther adjacent, but aren't really in the original cartoon. They're sister shows, and there's a lot of them. Pink Panther's like Lincoln Loud. That was a really stupid joke. The characters in the other shows prove to be of importance in the future. The Ant and the Aardvark, most famous of the extras. It's yet again a game of cat and mouse betwixt the two. Obviously, Aardvark wants to eat the ant. Despite being an aardvark, he's called an anteater quite a lot. It's Jungle Tom and Jerry. Aardvark is quite a curious character. He wears a shirt and shorts that are the exact color of his skin. He must have talked to his tailor and gave him the precise hex color code of his skin. So do the other aardvarks in the jungle, which includes the green aardvark, a minor character but rivals the blue boy. There were the Tijuana toads, about two Mexican frogs, Toro and Pancho, just sorta living life. A spin-off of that show is the Blue Racer, about a blue snake surviving in a swamp. Another character from the Tijuana toads showed up in the Blue Racer, Crazy Legs Crane, and evidently he was popular enough to get his own show called, of course, Crazy Legs Crane. The Dog Father is about a dog mafia. Hoot Kloot, a sheriff who rides upon his trusty horse Fester, who is usually referred to as Horse. It may or may not be the same horse as the horse from Pink Panther. Rolland and Ratfink. I don't really know what this show is about. I guess it's just like good guy and bad guy. And in one of their episodes, Big Nose actually appears. Finally, Mr. Jaw. It's about a shark, and this guy has nothing to do with anything. So for the remainder of the original show, nothing too eventful happens. Stuff we experience in our everyday lives, like accidentally kidnapping a baby, accidentally joining the military and becoming a pilot, or delivering bombs to embassies under the threat of a Soviet spy. The not so typical are the aliens. Every show of the Panthers seems to have an overabundance of of aliens or space stuff. Pink Panther encounters a butterfly-sized UFO with a bite-sized alien inside. In a separate instance, Pink Panther is flying his spaceship because he has that, and he has to refuel on a pink planet. He encounters a space Big Nose, who is an alien, I believe. These may or may not be the primordial space events chronologically, but they are the first ones we get to see. Now, I'm at a dilemma, one of many. In our timeline as humans, the next show was about his kids. But the one after that, the kids are nowhere to be seen. So hoping that the kids didn't die or get eaten or whatever else happens to kids, I guess we have to put the 1993 show before the kids show. The 1993 show is basically just a continuation of the original. The Pink Panther, 1993. This show gave the Panther a voice box, and he was able to fully speak. Quite jarring at first, but I got used to it as it went on. I'm of the belief, though, that he should remain silent. It was already his thing, so keep it his thing. This show gave way for tons of new characters and old characters finally having interactions with Pink Panther. You know what? I'm sick of saying Pink Panther so often. I'm gonna shorten it to PP. The new characters are Thelma, the daughter and sometimes niece to Big Nose. Just really depends on the episode. Or, hey, it could be both, couldn't it? Queen Kong, a strange, possibly widowed wife of King Kong, or maybe not, they could still happily be married, I don't know. A little Inuk guy named Mukluk, a scientist I already mentioned, Dr. Helmut von Schmarty, Slusho, a snowman, Jules Parrot, Granny, most often his neighbor, and the most important new character, Manly Man. Just like Pink Panther and Big Nose, he takes on whatever role he needs to. He potentially is the same dude from one of the original episodes at a Muscle Beach, but I would also like to add that he has some resemblance to Roland, of Roland and Ratfink. Big Nose, his dog, and the horse return, and with those old sister shows, they bring in the Inspector, Charlie Ant, and the Aardvark. The Dog Father comes back as a major antagonist, and just for a few episodes, they bring back the Tijuana Toads. Oh, wait, excuse me. They are the Texas Toads now. A few episodes of this show are dedicated to the guys I just mentioned, not even utilizing Pink Panther. The characters Ham and Eggs get an episode, and I haven't a clue of what or who they are. This is their only appearance that I'm aware of. The character Voodoo Man also gets his own episode, however he was a slightly recurring character throughout. We never see his face behind the witch doctor mask, but Blue Arms, Blue Legs? I got a theory here. What if it's the Blue Panther that was frozen in ice? They've never been seen in the same room. Anywho, Pink Panther, despite all his new friends, doesn't really get along with them. However, the Inspector is the exception. Pink Panther replaces Doodoo and becomes the Inspector's sidekick, and sometimes he does work with Aardvark, which is fun to see, like the Musketeer episode where they somehow are musketeers under a royal purple Aardvark. One time Pink Panther and Aardvark end up on an island where they find Aardvark's giant cousin Al, and then all three are chased by an even gianter ant. This show had no consistency, I love it. The content of this show is very much the status quo of all the average shows. He just lives his life and has daily tasks. Many of the episodes are the time period ones where he is at some point in the world's history. There's also multiple episodes that imitate popular movies and stories like Pinocchio, Wizard of Oz, and 2 episodes about Cinderella. He's hired by the president one time, well, actually, technically a second time when he runs the Easter egg hunt at the White House. Among the many things Dr. Schmarty does, one of the lasting ones is turning Pink Panther into Super Pink, a really boring superhero. Pink Panther keeps that persona up for quite a while. In one of the occasions where he works with the Inspector, they investigate a museum, and inside is the Mona Lisa, which I find intriguing, as the original Mona Lisa in their world was painted by Big Nose Da Vinci and Pink Panther. Way back when in their timeline, taking place in the original show, Pink Panther and Da Vinci battled back and forth. Da Vinci wanted Mona Lisa to frown and Pink Panther gave her a smile, with Pink Panther ultimately winning. I just thought it was a fun detail they don't elaborate on. This Pink Panther doesn't seem to remember painting it or signing it with his paw, so maybe it was an ancestor. Who knows? I'm kind of done trying to figure that out. In the new episode, his paw signature isn't there, so maybe it's just a what-if scenario. Maybe, just maybe, I'm using too much brain power on this. After even more fairy godmother and genie stuff, we can finally get to the aliens. Pink Panther and Manly Man head to Mars, where they find a green alien Big Nose, very, very similar to the one in the original show. So I'm calling this a cameo, and it's the same dude. That same alien Big Nose makes another appearance alongside his wife on vacation to Earth. Their son ends up kidnapping Pink Panther, so Pink Panther gets a taste of his own medicine for kidnapping that baby that one time. But then, there's a third alien encounter, one unlike the times before. These aliens are icky, gelatinous blobs of throw-up. On a more serious note, which to be honest I didn't expect Pink Panther would go this far, when Pink Panther is in his many jobs, this time a mailman, he has to foil an evil guy named Dr. Jellyfingers. You know what Dr. Jellyfingers does that is so bad? It's not your typical evil genius laser that destroys stuff, or releasing minions and goons into the street. No. Sending bombs in the mail. Pink Panther has to stop it. Thank God Pink Panther thwarts it, thus teaching the kids a lesson that terrorism is bad. Because without that, kids might be inclined. Now during the original show's run, there were 3 specials, and they aren't important, except for one, the one about Valentine's Day, and that's next in the timeline. In this special, he finds a Femalis Pincus Pantherus. He gets himself some panther tail. Literally, she has a tail. One thing leads to another, and out pops his son Pinky, and then a little later, another son, Panky. Quite odd that toddler Panky wears a diaper when his father and older brother wear no pants, period, but who's paying attention? We are now entering the Pink Panther and Sons show that fits the exact same mold as every other 80s cartoon. I don't know what happened to the mother, and Pink Panther can't talk anymore. Maybe she had something to do with that. Pinky and Panky are a part of a group called the Rainbow Panthers, consisting of Chatta, Rocco, Murphle, Annie, and Pumpkin. All of the Panthers have pets except for Pumpkin, who is allergic to the other animals. I don't know if an animal can be allergic to another animal, but either way, that's kind of funny. I know this isn't unique to this show, but these are animals owning other animals as pets. This show is not as good. They mostly use Pink Panther as a selling point because he's barely in it. They deal with a genie, a dino, another kind of weird alien, a hairball monster called Blobbo, so on and so forth. The meat of this show comes with Pink Panther's career. In this show, he's Pink Panther, the actor, the star. So I have the crushing fact that everything I've talked about, all of the antics, the time travel, the ancestors, the randomness, the occupations, the possible multiples of Pink Panther and Big Nose, this is how the story is able to make sense. He's an actor portraying all those historical characters. That's why him and Big Nose have a million different jobs. They're costumes. They're playing characters. Well, it's not a very good explanation, but sometimes the truth hurts. And it's not just me with my conspiracy theories. This is actually canon. Oh well, I guess that sort of means the next and most recent show, Pink Panther and Pals, is like my number 2 Dixon Ticonderoga pencil after a long essay. Pointless. So now Pink Panther is a teen, but no one else really. This time around, Ant and Aardvark get their own episodes like the original, and do not interact with Pink Panther. Best way to fit this in the timeline, despite the earlier struggle, is to just call this what it is. A reboot. A clean slate. Tabula rasa. Ant and the Aardvark continue their boring lives in the jungle, but now they have a supporting cast, both friends and enemies. Aardvark has an entire family reunion, so it's at least nice to see his lineage. Aardvark one time makes Eli the elephant rather angry, so he pounds him into the ground. On Aardvark's way down there's a UFO in the dirt, don't mind that though. He ends up in a giant Jurassic, world filled with dinosaurs, similar to how Ice Age 3 is. There's a prehistoric version of Aardvark, but this isn't history. That's not his ancestor, I don't think. These guys currently exist in the modern timeline. There are giants in this place, which could be a nod to an episode from the 1993 show where there are other giants. Same thing with this show, fairy godmothers, genies, and aliens. This time, the alien is lackluster and is just a little space guy that pesters Ant and Aardvark. Those two definitely got their fair shake in this show. They were utilized a lot. Big Nose also gets a family, a wife, and children. This time they all look like him, unlike Thelma did. And speaking of her, she's nowhere to be seen. Whatever happened to her? I would like to know, Pink Panther, the franchise. Big Nose is a space villain again, just a lot less green this time. In the last episode I'd like to mention of Pink Panther and Pals, they go full Unagami and go into a video game. And that actually doesn't matter. I just said it for the segue because speaking of video game, Pink Panther has a few of them. They're the least exciting thing in the whole Pink Panther catalog though. In the first game, just called Pink Panther, he is a butler and robs the wealthy. Cool. The next game is Pink Goes to Hollywood, and it just seems random. There really isn't too much of a story, just a basic platformer. Then, the Pink Panther Passport to Peril, and its sequel, the Pink Panther Hocus Pocus Pink. Both are more educational, teaching the player about various countries he travels to. And finally, Pink Panther Pinkadelic Pursuit. His uncle, that he apparently has, invites him to his house to nab a treasure. Pink Panther believed his uncle to be killed, specifically dinner for a blue dinosaur, but that was not the case. Pink Panther has to traverse 12 levels of the uncle's house. At the end, you fight Inspector, and then the uncle betrays Pee-Pee and makes off with the treasure, so then you chase him down, and that's it for the games. These games have no direct spot in the timeline, so I've said this a few times in previous videos, throw a dart somewhere and it's both correct and incorrect. There's a rather major thing that I can't exactly explain, so I have a friend that can. Viewers, this is Pink Panther. Sure, a cheap Temu Pink Panther, but Pink Panther nonetheless. So Pink Panther, show the audience what you have. Now, explain it for them. Oh, I see. Big cat got your tongue? I guess I'll speak for you. This is a Pink Panther comic book. How many were there? There were 87 issues between 1971 and 1983. He has a couple issues here, each with multiple stories inside. The stories, as far as I can tell, were comic versions of the original episodes. The Inspector also got his own comic series. Thank you for showing up, Pink Panther. It's good to see you. And thank you for showing the audience your 50-year-old comic books. But there's more comics beyond those. There's been some recent ones published by Harvey Comics, but I'm not too sure what those contain. There is for sure one where they have a giant crossover with all the characters from the sister shows, like Hoot Kloot and Mr. Jaw. They seem more like the 1993 show containing usual Pink Panther antics with some Ant and Aardvark sprinkled in. There's also a pretty recent comic strip, apparently. One final thing, Pink Panther's branding deals. This guy knows how to make money. He advertises for a bunch of companies. Andrews, which is an Alka-Seltzer's alternative, IBM, TDK VHS, that's how you know this guy's old, and finally, the big one, Owens Corning, aka Insulation. If you've been into a Home Depot or wherever, you've seen him on the giant rolls. He's done commercials for all these products, but especially Owens Corning, as they've had the longest lasting relationship all the way since 1979. And in case you didn't know, Owens Corning is one of the many companies that once used asbestos. They stopped in 1972, so technically Pink Panther didn't exactly promote asbestos, but, you know, close enough. Anywho, that's Pink Panther. Trying to make sense of this entire franchise is like, yep, this is introduced. Never mind, forget I said anything. Pretty iconic character, one of my personal favorites. I remember watching the two best shorts at my grandparents' house when I was young, one of which has an Academy Award and the other was nominated, that being the Pink Fink and the Pink Blueprint respectively. Those two are just especially awesome. I don't normally do this, but I'd like to end this video on my favorite Pink Panther quote. Here it is.